Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We're excited to have you here on our financial reporting webinar. Today, we're joined by our favorite MVP and financial reporting hero, Kim Dallefeld. She has over 30 years of experience, and so I know we have some really great insights throughout today's session. So, Kim, I'll hand it to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Allie. Welcome, everyone. Going to turn my screen on now. Yeah, it does take a second, doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to talk about financial reports in Business Central. If anywhere along the way you're like, wait, you've lost me because I don't understand Business Central that much, I'm happy to stop and answer questions. Allie, you're going to help me monitor the chat, I hope.
Yes, so if anyone has any questions, please put it in the chat and I'd be happy to be your liaison.
Perfect. Excuse me. Okay, so just a quick, well, come on, computer. Quick introduction. My name is Kim Dallefeld. I am a Microsoft MVP. I've been doing this product for a few years. And that's how you get all these little accolades, because you love to talk about it, right? Some people say I just love to talk. Well, they're not wrong. Anyway, I have enough experience to know that there's still more to be learned. That's the fun part. But anyway, enough about me. All right. I want to talk about the basic components of financial reports in Business Central. And there's really four components. So we have what's called analysis views. And in Business Central, we have our chart of accounts, and then we have really tags to them called dimensions. I think in products like GP and maybe others, those are called segments of the account number. In Business Central, we literally keep them separate from the account number, but it lets us take a really big chart of accounts and make it much smaller, because I can have salaries for 10 different departments, department being a dimension, but I don't have to have 10 accounts in my general ledger. So it really allows us to have a smaller chart of accounts. And yet I can use those dimensions in many ways. Maybe I use departments and locations and business units and market segments. I had a client do product groups of items, and I can mix and match these in doing reporting. Those are all called dimensions. So as we go along, I'll bring that back up. Why I need to maybe define analysis views is because I really have two dimensions that will always show up on my financial reports, and I can just report on them. We call those the globals. You get to define those, and then I can have as many others as I want. But I can only really put four on a financial report, just because there's a limitation of space. The second part, or the second component, is the rows. So what do I want to print down the page on my financial report, whether it be a balance sheet or income statement or statement of cash flows, or even a cash flow forecast? Which accounts do I want to print? Do I want to sum them? Do I want totals? And I'll go through an overview of the different things that I can format. There's a lot. Then we also have, well, we know what we're printing down the rows, but what do we want to see in the columns? Do we want to see a budget? Do we want to see month to date, year to date, a comparison of the two? What's the variance? Is there a percentage we want to calculate? Do I want to compare it back to a prior year? Again, column definitions, we'll go through some examples on those. I take basically all three of those, the views, the report definitions, row definitions, column definitions, combine them all together and create a financial report. And I can set those combinations up so I don't have to rethink it every time I want to go print one. And that's my report definition. And I'm just going to combine all of those things. And we're going to show you some of the ins and outs of those as well. Okay. So we get this a lot. I want to filter by a dimension, maybe a sales campaign. In other words, I want to report on that. How do I do it? Well, what I'm showing here is I set up an analysis view, called it campaign, And one of my dimensions in it is sales campaign. I'm also got area and salesperson and business group because maybe those would be nice to also provide some report differentiators. And then when I set up my financial report down here on the bottom, you'll notice I pulled in, this is my report name, also called campaign, but I'm using the row analysis of campaign. And that's just the way I'm going to link them together and pull in campaigns. I'm going to show you some how we use some of the dimensions, and hopefully this will all come together with that. So one of the things that we need to do is make sure that when we set up our report definition, that I pick the right analysis for what I want to report on, right? We can also have these analysis views that update automatically, or we can update them when we're ready to print a report. Why do one over the other? Sometimes if we have a lot of analysis views, it could slow down our posting. So we might want to push that off and do it just when I need it. So let's look at some of those rows. How do I define that? Well, it's pretty easy. I set up I name everything, right? Everything's got a name. But in this case, I wanted you to see kind of how it formats. So here I'm defining ranges of account numbers that I want to put on these different rows. So that cash line, I'm printing accounts 18,000 to 18,999. So that's what the dot between them is. It just specifies a range. I have these row numbers over here on this side. I put them all as CA for current assets. And then I added total current assets as a formula and just said, you know what, all the ones that say CA. It's just a shortcut. I could have in my chart of accounts an account that is total current assets, and I could print that versus doing a total here. I have more than one way to do almost everything on these reports. Let's also look a little further down and look at those other long-term assets and see this symbol right in the middle of two different ranges. That just tells the system, do both, add them together. And then down at the very bottom, I wanted you to see that we're actually using the rows F1 and F2 in a formula just to add them together. So I'm just taking my current assets, long-term assets, adding them together. So a lot of things I can do on the lines. Let's look at some more. So here's just a different row definition that I did. Notice the row numbers are very different. Just use numbers, which is fine. Some people will actually use the account numbers. That's fine too. But here's something I did very differently. We didn't use GL accounts. We used asset categories. So in your GL accounts, you can assign asset categories to your GL accounts, and you can pull those in and report that way. And then also, you can see I'm actually pulling my income from a totaling account in my chart of accounts. So net income is actually calculated by everything on your identified as an income statement account. But we don't just assume that. We allow you to identify that with an account. And then one last thing, again, a formula, just a different way to do a formula. This is saying take 3,000 all the way to 4010 and sum that. Okay, we're not done with lines yet. That was just how to put accounts on the lines. I want to show you some of the other options. So this, you've already seen kind of the first columns here, but we didn't really talk about some of the rest of this. So in the rows, I can pull in it, change, a year to date, maybe the amount type is the net, maybe it's the debits, the credits. So I have different things I can pull in for the type and the amount. Then I can also change the sign. You know, accountants want to see the true sign of the account. Management does not like to see income as a credit. right? They want to see it as a positive and expenses as a credit. And that may be the same thing on a balance sheet. Management doesn't like to see credits. They just, if it's a liability and it's a credit, then just make it a positive. We can also say, you know what? If any of the column on our report has got a zero, I don't need to see that empty column, right? It just takes up space. I've got other options here as well. I could have a column that I just use to do a calculation. So I could say, show it. No, I don't want to show it. And then I can bold things. I can also, I'll show you some more options here. Here's bolding. I can italicize, underline, double underline, break page. I want a new page for my liabilities. Let the assets be on a page, liabilities and equity on another. And you can see I can underline a couple of ways. I can underline here, or I can do a whole line that's an underline. It's a little bit different formatted when you see it. And those are the big ones. Let's do one more look at a different flow here. And you can just see there's a lot of combinations here. I'm bolding, I'm doing if any column, I'm using underlines. I've got something different here because I'm doing italicized and underline. And then down here at the bottom, I'm actually double underlining the operating expenses. So we've talked about analysis views. We've talked about the different lines and the things that we can do on lines. You'll notice I'm printing a lot of different kinds of things, pulling in different types of accounts as to what I want to print. And then I get to format all this too. What we haven't done yet is columns, and there's a lot of power also in pulling in our columns. So let's take a look at those. The column definitions are how we define what we're going to print. So here's a simple example, right? I'm going to print the current period's net change, year to date, and then I want to know what percentage the current is of the year to date. I gave my columns letters. I could call them 1 and 2. I'm pulling all of these are just pulling my transactions, my ledger entries. Again, I've got an amount type. I could do debits in a column, credits in a column, that kind of thing. And last one I have is this is a formula, and I'm telling it here what columns to take and how to deal with what's in those columns. So I'm going to divide my current by my total for the year to get what percentage this month is, or this quarter, whatever my current period is. There's a new field here, and I'll show you this in a minute for anybody who's been on the product. It's this include date in the column header. I have some reports now where I don't fill this out. I let this define what I'm going to show, and I'll show you some examples. That's one example of columns. Let's get another. So here we're going to do actual to budget. And I did A, B, C, D, could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or it could be 10, 20, 30. It's totally up to you. So I'm doing net change, which, okay, I could have called it really anything I want. Here's my budget. I want a variance. And then I would probably think this could be better by saying percent variance, right? But I'm taking the net change from my general ledger and the net change from all my budget entries so that I get whatever date range I run this for, that's the date that's going to apply to my net change. I'm doing a formula in column C, which is just the variance, A minus B. And then I want a calculation formula. So I'm going to take current divided by budget times 100 to get my decimal place moved. So instead of saying 0.65, it'll say 65%. I still got some more. This is really just talking about some of the column things I can do. So let's take a look at those. Remember I said I don't really use these column headers anymore because these were static. Well, now I can set one up that is trending. It's a rolling 12 months. And I can do that without having to change my static headers and just let the system tell me my month and year. And I've got an example of the output of this. Here's a different column type. This is a balance sheet. So I'm getting the balance at date. It doesn't matter what range I put in. If I've said fiscal year 126 to 131.26, what's the balance at 131? So it'll be the ending date. And over here, I'm actually going out and saying, make that fiscal year 1 and then get me fiscal year 2. And it goes down and does my 12-month rolling. You can see several other things on the screen, but let's look at a couple more examples. So here's one I drilled in a little bit tighter so you could see. Just doing current month, prior month, same. So I can get a difference. So this is current month. This is the same month in the prior year. Or this, I'm sorry, this is the previous month, sorry. So if this is January, then this is December. Then I'm doing current month in this year and that same month last year. So if this is January of 26, this column here, number 6, is January of 25. And then I'm doing differences, right? 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. Those are formulas. Now, how did I know that this was the current month? And how did the system know that you want to get this to be the prior month? Well, we're doing that over here in this comparison period formula. P stands for period. Minus 1P says go back a period. Again, period. And minus 1 physical year, go back 1 physical year. I can also show the opposite sign. I can do some rounding here. There's quite a few additional things here I can do on my column layouts. That's a lot. Anybody got any questions right now? Allie, we doing okay?
We're doing good so far. No questions, but reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat.
Awesome. Okay. This is I feel like very fast, and we still have a lot to cover. Dimensions. Dimensions are one of the real powers in Business Central, and I talked about that, how it's really tags to your transactions account by account. So in this example, I have revenue, and for my revenue accounts, I need to know what company, or maybe I could call it location or state or whatever. You'll notice that I'm using the same totaling here, but I want to put just one of my dimensions. We're calling it company here. So New York is 00, Atlanta is 100, and they're my big revenue generators. So I just throw everything else into another grouping. I could have done them all separately. So this allows me a lot of flexibility when I'm dealing with the different dimensions on how I use it on the lines. Notice here, I've got department, and then I've got dimension 3 and 4. These would be defined in those original analysis views if I was using them on this report. And they wouldn't say 3 and 4, they would say sales campaign, customer group, things like that. So this is one way, and I'm going to show you here how that actually looks when I ran a report to the screen, right? So what I see in description over here on the left is what I see actually on the report, and that's what would print. And of course, the system is summing things up based on my column definition. It's a real nice view to be able to have just one set of accounts and not one for every different company code that I have in this example. There's another way to do this also in using dimensions, and that's to use the dimensions in columns. So in this case, I did put the column header as my dimension name, and I filtered by that dimension. I have a couple additional departments, but I only wanted to break these out. To have a really good report, I'd probably want to make sure I cover all my dimensions, but it's just an example. I'm also doing month and year here, and you can see that in my example. So you can see production and sales, and notice in parentheses December 2025 in both cases, because that's the date I'm running my report for. And I'm actually still using the line definition that breaks out New York and Atlanta. In this particular case, I didn't have anything entitled production for New York or sales for New York, and yet I have a year to date. So it's a little hard to tell. The other columns are giving, or the other department dimensions are giving me another total, right? That's why I'm saying I always hesitate in not putting all my dimensions on there, even if it's in a group. We talked in the beginning about the 4 components of financial reports: the analysis views, row definitions, column definitions, and the report definition. And really what this report definition is are the defaults for my report. So I gave it a name of income statement detailed, just some abbreviations. You might have numbers for your reports, that's fine. And a title. I could categorize, in this case I didn't, but if you have multiple income statements, maybe you have a long list of reports, you might want to group them together. That's what the category allows you to do, and you define those categories. They're not predefined for you. Here's that row definition that I'm going to use for this report. And here's the column definition. Now I could run this report, IS detail, for using the trending column definition, the budget to actual column definition, the year over year definition. What happens sometimes is you go to run a report and you've got the defaults, and if you've changed it, you forget maybe that you're not running the default. I always recommend just set up 3 report definitions using the same row definition and just change your column definition. It's really helpful. I am going to talk about dimension perspectives in a minute, but I'm going to skip that for now. Notice how this says negative amount format, default. There's a couple of other things on here that say default. In my setup for my general ledger, I can define some report defaults. So what negative amount format is looking as what did you set up in a default? So I can have a minus sign, or I can have parentheses. I also have, how do you want to view it? This could be day, week, month. Most of the time we set month. Maybe it's a yearly report. So we might put year in there. A new feature we just added is the ability to say date filters, so that when I go to run the report, it knows, hey, we're in June, but go back and run it for May. Typically not running it for June, I'm running it for the prior month. So, and these are date formulas. So I would say maybe go back 1 month for the starting date, and run it for 30 days or something like that. Current month plus 1. I haven't played with those enough yet. I'll have to do a blog on the website so you can find that when I double check it. We have an Excel layout. I'm going to go into this a bit because I think this really gives you a lot of power to get really great formats. I'm going to be honest, you've seen some of the formats in the reports I've given. They're pretty black and white. just straight out of Business Central. We do have the ability now to put a logo on, and you can define where you want that, center, right, left. It's nice, but that only really happens when you send things to a PDF. I think a lot of people want to see an Excel workbook. So let me show that. Status is also a new field, and I love it because um, I might be working on a report. I want to put it in draft mode. I don't want somebody to actually print it and go, well, this doesn't balance. Because that's sometimes what happens when you're working on one. I might have, once I get some new ones, maybe I want to retire some old ones. I could make statuses be Kim's reports and Sam's reports, right? I like the status being something a little different. And I'll show you where we use those. And then this internal description allows us to put whatever we want. We could put, this is, run this for Bill when he asks for or the income statement trend or the P&L trend or something like that. So this one is explaining what it does, but I could also tailor this to help my staff know what to run and for whom. And then this is also good. When's the last time it was run? So I'm going to now talk to you about what we call dimension perspectives. And what that really means is when I need to run expense reports, maybe financial reports, anything I need to do, and I'm going to send it to department heads or division managers or something like that, I can have the system do that. I think in the past we had to run them, save it to a file, go into an email, attach the file, and send it out. It took time. If I've got clients with 50 different locations, that's doing that step 50 times. That's some time. So what we have now is, this is just a sample data dump of an expense report. Dimension perspectives are to allow me to schedule and run these reports. So if you look at the bottom of this report, you can see 4 different dimensions. They're my different departments. That's how the raw data looks. I can use that as a report, but when I set up these dimension perspectives, I can also set up a schedule. So in this example, I'm taking my admin department. I am going to export it to Excel. I'm going to send it by email. And then here I can define the recipients. So right up here, you see recipients. I would define those. And as I do, this number increments. The same thing for production and sales. I might not be sending the purchasing to anybody right now. And this, again, this is number of recipients. I can set this up in a schedule so that it runs, and I could have the department's expense reports go out every Monday. So those department managers can no longer say they don't have any idea of what their expenses are. Or I could do it once a month, or I could do both, right? I could have a different dimension perspective or a different schedule. This has become really, really useful, and I see this being expanded. This is brand new in the release that happened in April. So this is our list of financial reports. Maybe differently if you're in Business Central right now than what you're seeing. I've never liked this. It's called a tile view till now. I don't use it anywhere else but in financial reporting. Let's drill in on that so you can maybe see it a little better. And so it allows me to know the name of the report, right? As well as the little code that I set it up with. And it gives me some other pieces. Here's that definition. So I'm seeing, it's called a tile view. I can see the categories, the status, and even the date last run. And those are things I just didn't know before. I didn't have categories and status or run date before. Now I can see them here very, very easily. I could have some saved views that allow me to pull them up that way as well. Um, it's, a, it's very different. I'm still getting used to it, but it's so much power and easy to see right here. I think it's well worth it. Okay. I talked about Excel and Excel layouts. I'm not actually going to build an Excel layout for you, but I am going to talk about, well, maybe we'll get time to build one. Most, I think, management area, maybe your CFO, maybe not higher level corporate people, but we want one Excel workbook that has everything in it. I want the balance sheet. I want the income statement. I want all of these in one workbook. I want a trending one. I want month to date. I want the budget one. All these different tabs, and I want to get them in one worksheet. This is in two. I have saved my formats. I took the definition that we did. I put it out in Excel, then saved that format back into Business Central so that when I run my Business Central reports, this is what I get. The headings with the totaling, the underlines, the colors, everything. Great. I still have a balance sheet and an income statement, not one workbook. So let me show you. This is an actual Excel document with a balance sheet and an income statement. Now I've actually started not saving the Excel formats back into Business Central and using Copilot in Excel. And that's how I built this. I took those two separate Excel sheets, the balance sheet and the income statement, and I asked Copilot to bring them in to one Excel workbook and format them. I just asked for an executive style format and to make both reports follow the same style. I don't know that my last request from Copilot will be here. Well, no, it doesn't look like it. You can save those and reuse them. What somebody told me they do as a hint, they come to another sheet over here, and here's where they have their Copilot instructions, and they just hide this sheet. So nobody sees it, but when they want to look at it, they can, which I think is brilliant. There's also a new feature in Excel called Finance. It does have to have an admin install it, but I don't think it's as good for creating my income statement and balance sheet formats. I think it does a great job of doing some reconciliations and things. Um, and so that's definitely something you can check into. It does not cost any more um, as long as you've got a Copilot license. I think we're going to have time for I can show you one of those. All right, so that's how I get from these two sheets to the one. Same data, just pulled it in different. Now you're seeing a couple of different companies here, and then the last thing that's new really is being able to pull audit logs, who ran reports, when, and we're doing more and more on audit, especially from the financial side. So again, this is a new feature. I just did an example. It just lets me who's running what report, when they're running it, was it run by the schedule or not? And I probably cut off some extra fields there. That is the big piece. I'm going to stop and do some questions and answers, and then if we have, since we still have a little bit, I can go out and show you the templates a little bit more and how you can run to a template, and we'll do that as a live scenario.
So far, no questions. But if anyone has any, please send them in the chat.
Sounds good. And
You're just too good
also,
at explaining, Kim. I mean,
now everybody's going, oh my gosh, what's she talking about? I do, I'm going to put something in the chat so you have it. Let's see. It is my blog site, and there are, as an MVP, it's an award Microsoft gives you each year. If you've done, a lot to promote Business Central, help provide free information to people. So this is my blog site. When you bring it up, it might say Kim's Corner, but that is the right address. All of these things I've talked about today, I've broken them down into smaller chunks and covered them more in depth. This just allows me to bring it together and give you an overview. Here's also, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and there's my email if that's helpful. So let's go into Business Central. And you know what? I don't think I pulled up Business Central. I have not, so that's my bad. All right, I can do that real quick. I hear a lot of times that there's not a lot of enough reporting capability in BC, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot. But you know what? I think we all have such different ideas about the reporting we want and being really specific. I put dollar signs on every value in a 12-month trended income statement for a client, and it was very upsetting to them. They wanted a dollar sign only on the first line. It's like, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. But yeah, I mean, so we're all picky. I'm picky about certain things, right? And we have our, I won't say picky, we have our preferences. How's that? Um, okay, so I am in the wrong environment. So let me get to, we have different test environments here. So this will take a little bit deeper dive into how we actually can use Excel layouts. And if you want to create one and format, this is a way to do it. So I'm going to pull up revenue and let's see if we get some good data on it. There we go. We have nothing. Let's change our time period. And let's see what we have in 25. How about 26? This one is showing me nothing. That's not good. I know how to look at it. Let's see. General ledger. I had my entries set up, so what happened to them? There we go. It does say 24. I want to see what rows we have. So here's my row definition. These are just revenue. That's why I was not seeing anything, because I don't have any revenue recorded. So let's look for an income statement. And we've got some information here. Now it's very summarized. Let's see if I've got, I don't see one that's going to go in more detail. Let's use this one. So one of the things I can do in this view, and this is just giving us a net change, so I don't need to be that wide. But when I first run it, I'm going to create a new Excel template. This literally dumps it to Excel, and I can open that file. That is the Excel file I was in, so you can see it's still working to open a new file. All right, I have a very, very simple income statement, as you can see. But if I wanted to format this, because that's really pretty blah, I have to say, right? What I do is I create enable editing. I create a new tab, and I've found that B6 works. So I'm going to set B6 equal to B6. And then since I've only got 2 columns, I'm going to just bring over the 2 columns. And I actually don't need others. Whoops. But you can see what I'm doing is I'm linking this. Maybe I needed to go over a third one because I don't see my dollars. Needed one more. There we go. So now I'm just playing in Excel. And actually I can hide this. So I'm going to take out some things here because these are headings and blank lines. And I want this to be bold and bold and bold and whoops, bold, 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 bold and bold. Right. And I don't have any expenses, so if I did, they would come in here. Oh, I don't like these. Let's make these dollar amounts. That looks a little better. I can see parentheses and things like that. So I had nothing really set up. I was using the defaults, which is a minus. And I could put color. I want my income to be green, right? I want my expenses to be maybe a shade of red. I'll do this kind of yellowy. Oh, that's not what I wanted. And maybe cost of goods. Oh, what should we call that? A blue. I can put headings up here. I can have the system. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say equals. I'll have to unhide that. It's always nice to have a good title. I want this to be the date I ran this for. Oh, that's why I only ran it for 1 day. Okay. Now what's going to happen? Let me save this. I'm going to take it out here, file, save as. I'm putting it in downloads, income test. I'm going to close it. I'm going to go back into Business Central, and I'm going to put a default layout in, call it test, and I'm going to import that file I just saved. And it makes a connection here. So I'm going to run this again. I know it's just got 1 day on it, but I'm going to open it using the layout that I just gave it. And it put a 1 after it because it's called the same name. That's still the one. I should close that one out. I always open it and I go, oh my gosh, it didn't save any of my formatting. And it looks like I didn't save it. Well, that was not nice of me. Oops. Oh, I've lost my Excel. It's on another screen. That editing I did, this was the original file. If I can find the test one I thought I saved. Okay. Let me see. Let's close this and this, and I'm back in Business Central. Ah, that's what I didn't do. So I set it up here, but notice I left that blank. So I need to tell it to use the test there. Okay. Now the only Excel I have open is a chart I'm building. Right. Yeah, that chart. That's not what we want. So we're going to open Excel using the layout that I now attached. And this will be, it has test at the end of it. I'm going to put it on another screen. Darn it. Sorry. I want to show you this because when you first get it, you think it hasn't done anything. But guess what? It has. All you have to do is say enable and it populates. Now, if I'd run it for a different date, it would have brought in different information. But this is how I can build those different spreadsheets and then have Copilot combine them. Oh, yes, this was a simple one. But the edits, also, you know what? You can add charts here. If you want to add a chart, the system will save that chart and know how you built that chart. And every time you run this and populate, that chart will be there. We actually have the ability to do that for many reports inside Business Central outside of even the financial reports. So this is just a simple get started way to use Excel templates back into financial statements. And again, that with Copilot Copilot in Excel can really help provide fabulous financial reporting workbooks. And we all started with a simple financial report in Business Central. So, do we have any questions yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay, well, if you do have some, you've got my email. Feel free to go use that website. There's a lot of additional information on there. And join us next month. I think we have, well, watch for our emails and join us next month. How's that?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate it.